Welcome, everybody. I'm Cassie Koelsch. Today, I'm talking about how to start a new job, handling your career transitions in tech. I am a software engineering manager at Booknook. I am also right in the middle of a transition, so this is very timely for me. I just started my new job 2 weeks ago. I've been in tech for about a little over 6 years now, and I've had a few different transitions. I think it's very common to have quite a bit of transitions in tech because the statistics show, like, the big tech companies like Google, Facebook, all of those, they tend to have a turnover rate of 3 years or less for their developers. So there's a lot of movement in tech. There's a lot of times that we might be transitioning in tech. Maybe you're coming from a job that is not tech to a tech job. Maybe you're going um, horizontally, you're going just from one job to another, or perhaps you're even just getting promoted, so it's in the same company but you're getting a new job. All these things are things to consider as transition in tech. um, they said that during the pandemic, about 26% of people were just starting to consider leaving. And then when things started opening up, there was a massive amount of movement. And you see that a lot in tech. About 80% of the people who were moving jobs wanted to move because they wanted advancement. And most of them were starting to rethink their skills. Many people are learning new skills, and particularly in tech, there's a lot of resources online, like freeCodeCamp, to learn how to code and things like that. So a lot of people are looking for new jobs. I love this quote: "The only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle." I 100% believe in this. When I transitioned into tech, I came from another career and in a different field, and it was kind of nerve wracking. And so learning how to do these transitions will help us all. Transitions are very stressful. I don't think I have to tell anybody that. I think everybody knows. When you're going through these transition times, it's not only stressful because of the job transition itself, but often because we're dealing with multiple transitions at once. um, Sometimes, we're getting promoted, and so maybe the transition is a new job that we've never even done before. Perhaps we're moving. A lot of times when you get a new job, you have to move somewhere else, so you're dealing with a move on top of coming into a new job. Perhaps you're dealing with the career change, coming from a job that was not tech into a tech job, and now you're doing something that you've never even done before. So all these things can be nerve wracking, and the most thing that I have dealt with um, in these cases is imposter syndrome. If it's going to hit any time, it usually hits me right at a career transition. I'm starting to say, "Uh-oh, am I? Do I know what I'm doing? Am I in the right spot even?" But I think just recognizing it and knowing that often this imposter syndrome starts coming in right when we're transitioning to a new job, that gives us a leg up so that we can start planning and transitioning more successfully. So, how do we make a successful transition happen? Today, we're going to talk through the timeline of when you get an offer and the putting in your 2 weeks, going through what to do on your first day, first week, all the way to your 30 and 60 and 90 days at your new job. Typically, by the 90-day mark, that's when most of your job coworkers and your boss, they're kind of expecting that you have your feet under you. And so having some plans in place and having a few of these kind of tips and tricks that you can do can help you get on your feet even faster than 90 days. So you have an offer. Once you have an offer, what then? right? Now it's time to say goodbye to your last employer, whether it's a tech job or a non-tech job. The number one thing you always want to do is leave gracefully. Um, I don't burn bridges. I can't express enough how important it is to keep as many of the contacts and positivity from your previous employers. You never know when you may see them again, you may work with them again, you may need them for references. It's always important to leave on a good note. And with that being said, do try to give them 2 weeks as much as possible. This is pretty standard, in any career, but particularly if you are a developer leaving a company, because you're leaving a code base over to someone else. With that being said, you'll want to leave it better than you found it. That's what our moms always say: leave it better than when you found it. Particularly with development work, right? You're leaving a code base, and even in code that I've written, sometimes 6 months later, I'll say, "Who wrote that?" "Oh yeah, that was actually me." So leaving the code base in a good spot, trying to make comments that make sense in your code base, trying to leave documentation as much as you can for the people who are coming behind you or the people who are still there, and making sure you set up meetings during your last 2 weeks to hand off for the other developers or maybe to your manager, to make sure that they have all of the information, all of the knowledge that was in your head as you leave. Because you if you've ever come into a new code base, you'll know those people who were kind enough to leave the code base in a really good spot have made your life easier. Another thing to consider, during your 2 weeks or right after, is trying to take a break. If you can take a break between your past job and your new job, that's really a good thing for you. If not, at least take a mental break. Take your time to sit and think of, visualize what you want for yourself in your new position and what that might look like for you, and kind of let go of the stress and um, the things that you had in your past job. Your new job and the things that you're going to do on your new job are going to be, um, you're going to need different strategies and different things to come in for your new job than you had in your old job. You don't want to be that person that comes into your new job and say, "Well, at my last job we did this. At my last job we did this." Nobody wants to hear that. It's good to keep those experiences for yourself, but it's good to say the past is past. I'm moving on, and now this is something new. And then on that note, take some time to prepare. Hopefully, when you were doing your interview process with your new company, you looked into things like the company culture and you went through their website. You maybe looked at their competitor software, or you looked on LinkedIn to looked at your coworkers' LinkedIn accounts, things like that. Get to know the company as much as you can before you start. It'll give you a heads up on the first day when it's time to really get going. So it is your first day. What do you do on your first day? Um, you dress nice, you put on your best smile, and don't forget to introduce yourself. Sometimes, particularly if you're going into meetings with a lot of people, it could be a little bit intimidating, but make sure you introduce yourself, and you may need to introduce yourself multiple times. People may forget when they were introduced to you the first time, or if they interviewed with you, they may have forgotten who you are or what your position is. So make sure you introduce yourself and then introduce yourself again. And on that, you be graceful for people who are forgetting your name, but for you, make sure you learn people's names. Names are incredibly important. um, I try to always make a point when I'm messaging somebody on Slack or sending an email to always call the person by their name. And then when you get on a call with them, or maybe if you're in the office and you're in person, make sure and say hi and then their name. People like hearing their names, and knowing people's names will show that you care, show that they matter. And then your very most important job for your very first day is to listen and ask questions if you need to, but mostly listen. I think we come in and we're nervous. We don't really know what's going on or where to start. And the more information you can take in on your first day, on your first week, on your first 90 days, the better. So always make your most number one goal to listen and ask questions. So now we're starting to talk about the first week, right? You're in it. It's time to go, but there's still so much to learn. So, like I said, the most important thing is to listen and learn. When you're coming in as a developer or any tech job for that matter, one of the first steps you want to do is read all of the documentation you can get your hands on, meeting notes or um, code documentation. As a developer, you're going to want to go through the code base. You're going to want to make sure you get everything set up on your computer and go through everything that you possibly can. And then spend a lot of time talking to people and listening. Listening comes up again and again because that's probably the most important thing you can do when you very first start. I think sometimes people's tendencies is to feel like I need to contribute right away. So I need to jump in and I need to do something and I need to make change and I need to make a difference when you may actually make some mistakes if you don't understand the culture of the company that you're coming into first. So understanding what's going on is more important than jumping in. And so listening is super important. A lot of times you'll come into companies that maybe have a messy code base. I would be surprised if there's any company that has legacy code that doesn't have a little bit of a messy code base, but there's always reasons behind that. Or maybe there's some processes that don't exactly make sense to do that way, but there's a reason behind that. And asking those questions, hey, why do you guys do XYZ? And getting an understanding of the history behind those is much better than just jumping in and saying, hey, this is awful. Why are you guys doing this? Because there's usually a reason and usually a smart reason. And maybe everyone at your new job, they do understand that maybe this process or maybe this type of code or something is not the ideal, but maybe there's a reason why they did it that way. And by understanding that will help you make better decisions going forward. You'll want to set up your environment the first week. That's probably one of the things that's going to take you the most time is to set up your computer, downloading all of the software that you need, making sure you're in Slack or Zoom or whatever your company uses, making sure that you have access to the building if you're in the office, things like that. Make sure you have all the desk accessories that you need. As you get started to set up with your environment, some things that I've always done is I start making a list of my favorite things to install on my computer first, and what I like to have set up for my development environment so that I can very quickly go through my list of the things that I like to have set up on my computer. Also, things to consider if you are taking a remote job. Do you have a good camera? Do you have a good microphone? Do you have a very comfortable desk setup? Or are you working on a stack of books? You're sitting up your laptop on a stack of books, making sure that you have everything that you need to be successful. It is important to have a good camera and a good microphone if you can, as good as you can, because when you're working in a remote position, it's very important for people to be able to see you. You need to have your camera on as many meeting as possible, because then people will be able to see your facial expressions and you'll be able to see theirs. As far as audio, having a good microphone, having good audio, they have done studies that say it actually makes you seem smarter and more in control when you have high quality audio and you sound good. So having those things is actually quite a bit important. And to go along with your camera, make sure you have decent lighting so that they can see you. Make sure that the light's not coming from behind you so that you look like you're in the witness protection program or something like that. Another thing to start considering right away is taking a lot of notes. It's always important in your whole career to take a lot of notes, but take notes. Take notes when you meet with people. What are their jobs? If somebody mentioned your coworkers mention one of their hobbies, write it down. Keep notes on those things so that you can show that you care and get to know them. And make sure you're writing down possible tasks, possible thoughts of things that you may need to do in the future, or um, and probably one of the most important things to take notes on is your questions. As you're going through your first day, your first week, write down questions that you have, and every time that they pop into your head so that you can circle around and get those questions answered. Um, I I like taking my notes in an app called Obsidian so I can take them locally on my computer, but make sure that you have some sort of organization to your notes if you're using something like Evernote or Notion instead of Obsidian. Any of those are good options to keep your notes. I like to keep notes on people. Like I said, keep notes of their when's their birthday, what's their dog's name. I keep those in an app called Clay that I think it's still in beta right now, but it's really good. It will pull in all the information from LinkedIn for you so you can get to know who that person is before you meet with them. But you could just use your contacts app and put notes in the contacts app for those people that you're meeting as you're meeting your coworkers. One of the most important things to get started on your first week is to have scheduled a one-on-one with your manager. So some companies do one-on-ones normally, like that's just part of their culture. If it's not, I suggest that you reach out to your boss and say, "Hey, can I have some time on your calendar every week? Preferably every week. If they're super busy, maybe it's every other week." But having that one-on-one time with your manager is incredibly important, and it's going to be one of the big things that sets you up for success. So on your first one-on-one, there's a bunch of things to ask and talk about with your manager. You may or may not be able to get through them all in the first one-on-one, so maybe you need to schedule another, but some things to consider during your one-on-one. Make sure and get a data dump from your boss. Have them give you all the information about the company. Where's the company's priorities right now? What tasks are being done? Who does what? Get all the information you possibly can. All of those questions that you are writing down while you were taking notes, those questions are the ones to ask your boss at that time. Always make sure the next thing to make sure is to set expectations. You will come in the company with hopefully a job description or an understanding of what your job is. That doesn't mean that because of culture that's actually what you're going to do. A lot of times there's other pieces to your job that you don't necessarily know. So always, I do it every single one-on-one. Make sure and ask about expectations. What's expected of you? And make sure that you are asking for feedback on whether or not you're meeting those expectations. And then revisit it every one-on-one because sometimes those expectations change. You don't want your expectations to be so different that your bosses and then your boss's expectations that you get to the end of your 90 days and you felt like you were successful, but they felt like you were not. So make sure that you are very much in sync on what those expectations of your job is. One of the another conversations to have in your first one-on-one is about communication and leadership styles, particularly with your boss. What are their leadership styles? What is their preferred form of communication? Do they want to get Slack messages from you? Do they want to get emails from you? Do they want you to walk into their office? What is their preferences? And have them get those preferences from you as well. How do you like to receive feedback, and um, how do you prefer to communicate with them? And make sure those things are set very clearly in your first one-on-one. The other thing to make sure to get is your resources. What access do you need? Do you need access to GitHub? Do you need access to a Google Drive or Slack? What access do you need? And do you have all the access? Make sure that you ask those things. Also, other resources. Do you have a monitor that you need or whatever to make sure that you're set up to be successful? And then we'll talk some more about your 30, 60, 90-day goals, but this is the time to start showing those to your manager. Maybe you may be coming into a job that you're lucky they already have 30, 60, 90-day goals for the position that you're coming into. But if they don't, then it's time for you to write some and have some good ideas of your goals for your first 90 days. So, what are those? So, many of your first 30-day goals are going to be similar to what we just talked about, right? Your main focus in your first 30 days is to absorb. Number one, listen. So you have so many things to absorb. And I think sometimes if you're coming into a position as a developer, you're particularly if you're coming in from a non-tech job and this is your first time as a developer, you may be saying the first thing I need to do is get in the code base and understand the code. That is important. Absolutely, you'll want to make sure that's on your computer. You want to make sure you're getting into that, but you really also need to make sure that you're understanding the entire company culture and the business context, the business domain. You're going to be a better developer if you understand what the business goals are as a whole for the entire company. Why does the company build the software that they build? Who are your customers? What does the customers want? Sometimes we don't think we think, oh, that's the job for the project manager or maybe for user research or something like that. But if you are understanding what the goals are of the company, you can actually build software better. And understanding the culture is maybe even more important than understanding the code base. Who is it that you need to know, and who is it that you need to um, become friends with or have as an ally per se, right? There's not just a need for you to get to know your boss, but also all of your peers, and maybe not even your direct peers as developers, but maybe it's others in other departments that you need to get to know, or maybe if you're coming into a leadership position, it's your direct reports. But there's people 360 all around you that you need to get to know and need to know who these people are and what the culture is. Um, is there a culture that it's a no to start messaging people after hours, or is that a common thing here in your new job? Getting to know all of these ins and outs so that you can be successful and fit in with the culture that you're coming into. And then, as we were talking about before, making sure in your first 30 days to continuously reevaluate what the expectations are. Always going back and saying, "Am I meeting the expectations? What are the expectations in this position?" And one of the things that I would suggest you do is as you're taking notes, also take notes on your progress to your goals. I've heard some people call it like a brag log or something like that. But I think particularly I will say particularly women we often don't remember to think about the things that we were successful at, but write down things that you have done starting in your first 30 days to start meeting your goals, because when you circle back and start having those conversations with your manager, it's good to go back and say, oh well, during this time I did this, and that's why I have started meeting my goals. So keeping track of those things, those wins, those successes, is important. So after the first 30 days, now we are on to the second month, the first 60 days. Things are you're absorbing. You're still not going to stop absorbing. You're still going to continue to learn and to listen. But now it's time to start analyzing a little bit about the things that you have learned that are going on. How can you start asking questions to yourself, maybe, about how can we improve, how do I fit in here better, things like that. Getting an understanding and analysis of what are the issues that are facing my team and my company, and where could I step up and help in those areas. Um, Being proactive in your first 60 days to start reaching out to people. Don't wait for people to reach out to you, but reach out to people to find areas where you can learn or start contributing. By 60 days, as a developer, you want to make sure that you are in your code base, starting to take um, some of the issues or tickets on, and make sure you have spent some time pair programming with some of the senior developers, or maybe with your manager, or maybe just some peers, to make sure that you are understanding the processes and everything that goes in to the development process at your new company. You'll want to make sure at the 60-day mark that you're already starting to do some of those things. Then the 90-day mark, that's when everybody is somewhat expecting that you'll be up to speed. Your main focus for your first 90 days to have at the end of your 90 days is to be able to establish your credibility for what you do, to build influence quickly by getting to know those around you and creating trust with those around you. How do you create trust and influence? You do those through talking with them and get to know them, keeping your word, doing what you say you're going to do, and things like that. So on that note, I love this quote. You can have everything in life you want if you will just help other people get what they want. One of the most important things going and listening, one of the other than listening, one of your main most important goals for your time, when you first start at your new company, is to find areas where you can help others. It will always serve you to think every day about how you can help others. One of my favorite speakers, Brendan Burchard, in his book High Performance Habits, he talks about questions to ask yourself every day. And one of those questions is, how can I serve with excellence today? Um, it's something to ask yourself when you wake up in the morning, or maybe when you're getting ready or in the shower, having your coffee. How can I serve with excellence today? How can I help the people around me? Whether that's other developers, whether that's your manager or your direct reports, how can you help and serve them with excellence? And another question: who needs me on my A game today? Who is relying on me to get things done, or to serve, to be um, on my A game and in excellence? Who is asking for my help, and what can I do to serve them today? Your job, in the end, is to try to make their job easier. Any job you go to, whether you're in tech or not, coming in and always having that mentality that my job is to make everybody else's job easier all around me, then you're going to be setting yourself up for success. Thank you for watching today. Again, I'm Cassie Koelsch. I am at Cassie Koelsch on most social platforms: Twitter, Facebook, Slack, GitHub. You can reach out to me if you have questions, and I'll be in the chat afterwards. And I will also put a plug that Book Nook is hiring. So if you're interested, please reach out. Thank you guys for watching today.